This is Ubuntu Radio, South Africa's public diplomacy in action, and joining us right now is Commissioner for Border Management Agency, that is Dr. Mike Masiapato. Good afternoon, sir, and welcome to Ubuntu Radio.
No, that's great. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and we are very much excited as the BMA to be part of the conversation.
Doc, the last time I spoke to you, we were at the BRICS Summit in Sandton, and today here we are, of course, at the G20 Summit, the very first leg, of course, also happening on this very continent for the very first time. Your thoughts and your views in that regard, particularly looking at the journey and the preparations leading to this particular summit.
Yeah, so maybe the first thing to indicate is that when we as the Border Management Authority had to facilitate the BRICS Summit, we were very much few months old. I mean, from the 1st of April 2023 to around August. So it was very much early. And of course, we did learn some bit of lessons in as far as that particular process is concerned. But we also know at the same time, in terms of numbers, it was very few heads of state that we had to facilitate compared to now, in G20. So what we had to, in a way, learn along those value chain was the first that you need to invest in proactive work. You need to invest in preparatory work so that when you have to do the actual facilitation, you have lesser of challenges. And on that particular basis, I can confirm that out of the lessons of the BRICS Summit, we were able to agree that one thing we must do is to engage with our colleagues from international relations and cooperation and make sure that we meet with the people from all over the world who were actually to come through into the country in terms of the G20 and re-emphasize the requirements, for them to come into South Africa and be able to say, for instance, if you have a diplomatic passport, there's no need for visa. But should you come with an ordinary passport, there will be a need, for example, for a particular jurisdiction. But also to emphasize in other countries by saying that your country is a yellow fever infested country. So for you to come into South Africa, there will be a need for you to come with a proof of vaccination, which is the yellow fever certificate. So all of that work that we did ahead of time actually made sure that at least when we had to do this work now, it was a bit easier because of that proactive work. So the journey has been very much fulfilling, but also very much inspiring in a way that we're able to see the level of compliance, particularly by the people that had to come through into the G20.
So there were no discrepancies, or should I say, what were some of the challenges really that you encountered along the way?
You see, the first thing that we had to do in terms of dealing with the work, as you will know, there's always an A suit and there's always a B suit. So in terms of the A suit individuals, we then agreed that we will have to process them within the State Protocol Lounge, in OR Tambo in particular. And on that basis, we had to do that separation. In terms of those that came with the heads of state, but they were part of the B lounge, they had to come through to the normal cubicles for them to be processed. So we had special lanes that were designated just for the G20. But because we were also, I would say, launching what you will call the ETA, which is Electronic Traveler Authorization, we also had around 4 counters for that purpose, wherein we were processing people electronically without necessarily having to be physical about it. So all of those put together enabled us to be able to have a seamless process. So from an immigration point of view, we didn't have much of a challenge. Most of the people, or almost all the people that came through, complied. In terms of health, as we were screening the people when they came through, we didn't experience any enhanced levels of temperature, which would have forced us to get somebody to be quarantined. So everybody complied. But in terms of agriculture, we had some issues there and there. Mm-hmm. So we still had people who would have brought in some fruits, brought in some kind of meat, whether in the form of biltong from their jurisdiction. Unfortunately, we had to confiscate those and get them destroyed. Because sometimes people don't necessarily know that as a jurisdiction, we don't just allow anything into the country. If you need to import some fruits, for instance, you need to follow the normal protocol of importation. And when you do that, obviously, what it will mean is that you must follow that protocol They will issue you with phytosanitary certificates, or they will issue with veterinary certificates, and that becomes the principle. So we had some few interceptions in that context through our canine unit, which is basically the dog unit. Basically, their role is to actually sniff all the bags as the people come through, especially even around the conveyor belt for the bags. And we had to open them and make sure that we actually get those destroyed. Those were some of the things that we discovered, but generally there hasn't been much of a bigger challenge.
And then in terms of the air traffic, I mean, it's not every day that we have heads of state, heard to one country. We know that normal circumstances, presidential, private, flights. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, you see, the actual approvals regarding the movement of flights is done by the Air Transport, ATNS, Air Traffic Navigation Services. So basically, what they had to do, obviously, is to receive the flight plan, from all of the flight companies. But more critically, they also had to receive or to actually issue out through the Department of Transport what is called foreign operators permit for these particular foreign airlines to be brought into the country. So all of that work actually went very smoothly. There hasn't been much of a challenge. But more critically, we had a bit of an instance around the parking of those particular airlines or those particular aircrafts. Because when they arrive at OR Tambo, they had to be taxied and ultimately they had to be packed through. And in this instance, they actually did not fly out. They had to remain because they were charter flights, and most of those were presidential flights. They will be waiting for them to actually go back with them on Monday, Tuesday, and all of that in the coming week. So we had a bit of an issue around the space. But of course, obviously with conversations with AXA, we were able to get them properly aligned and properly spaced out, and we were able to accommodate those. And of course, we had some at Waterkloof Air Force Base. We also had some at Lanseria. So effectively, I can say that we were able to deal with that traffic, and ultimately, we had to process everybody until this morning, by the way.
Well, now, lastly, Doc, the first G20 summit, once again on the African soil, your overall sentiments. A declaration was signed today, the very first time that it happens, on the first day, actually, of the actual meeting of heads of states. What are your thoughts about that? This is massive, particularly not only for South Africa, but for the continent as well. Do you think we pulled it off quite well? What are your thoughts? I know that we still have tomorrow, but so far, what are your sentiments?
No, firstly, maybe one can indicate that it is indeed a big achievement for South Africa, but for the rest of the continent, particularly to have a unanimous, approval for the declaration. For me, that has been a very great success. What is more critical, particularly within the context of border management, is to be able to start implementing and making real most of the issues that are in the document. One of the fundamental issues is about Africa Continental Free Trade Area. One of the issues that is being emphasized is the issue of inclusivity. But the most critical aspect is to make sure that Africa trade, amongst itself, we are also able to achieve, sub-regional economic integration. So as the Border Management Authority, we then get challenged to make sure that at least we are able to facilitate the movement of trade, between ourselves and the rest of our neighbors, but also to the rest of the continent. As you will know, in terms of North-South corridor, there is a lot of consignment that move from Durban Harbour through into the N3, through Gauteng, into the N1, and ultimately exit into Beitbridge. Some of them goes into the N11 and enter or exit through Growlers Bridge into Botswana, ultimately through Kazangula Bridge into Zambia and the rest of the continent. So South Africa, therefore, is very much central in as much as the movement of cargo is concerned, and therefore we have a fundamental role to play as the Border Management Authority, particularly in ensuring the seamless movement of cargo from us into the rest of the neighborhood, but into the rest of the continent. So we are very much excited that we are also going to contribute in making sure that all these declaration aspects are effectively achieved operationally, and South Africans and the rest of Africans must see the benefit of having had this G20 in South Africa.